Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hello, hello. Welcome to our little corner of the internet in the year 2023. This is Dane and Derek, Season 3. And my name is Derek, and this is our show where we talk about art, Dungeons and Dragons, life, and more. And this is our third season. Woo!
Woo! 2023 sounds weird. Gonna be honest. Gonna be real honest about that. I'm not used to it yet. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one. But anyways, I'm Dane, and I'm a writer. I'm a law student, lover of tabletop RPGs and art and stuff in general. Generally a lover of things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely a lover, not a fighter.
Agreed. Yeah. Most people who would know me would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Not terribly fighty.
No.
Which
is, probably a good thing.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I will say, when I play characters in D&D, I tend to be a bit of a damage seeker and game breaker, but that's like the only area of my life where I tend to be that way.
It's your outlet for all the times you choose not to.
Yes,
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about season 3, because this is like the beginning of it for real?
Yeah. So at the end of last year, we made some hopes and vows to make some changes to the show. One of which will be that we're going to be having episodes hopefully every other week now. Still the same half-hour-ish format. But we're also going to
release like a nearly 2-hour thing with Clara recently. Yeah. Half an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been very bad.
It's hard with guests. Anyways, keep going. I interrupted.
Yes, it's definitely hard with guests. And so we're going to be doing what's it called? We're gonna have different segments on this show now, and so we're gonna have 2 segments, one from each of us. Which Dane, I guess you can tease the first segment.
Yeah, so the first segment we're going to be doing is like a 1-minute check-in with me about law school, basically. Just kind of like I'm still only a semester in, so it's kind of going to be a fun thing to be like, how am I doing? What's going on? Like, just interesting things that come up. So yeah, that's kind of what that is. And maybe this whole project is mostly for you and I. So it'll be kind of fun for at least me to be able to like listen back and kind of hear a little bit of a audio diary of it. So that's kind of what that is.
Yeah. And then for me, on the flip side, I'm going to be doing like a 1-minute film teaser, or a film update, which is like me updating everyone on the progress of me making my next short film.
See, I love that.
Yeah.
Is that like an accountability thing for you a little bit?
Yeah, an accountability thing. And also, I think, we talk a lot about movies, but I haven't talked too much about the movies I'm making.
This is true. Yeah.
And so hopefully this will be like another space for me to also like think through like the film I'm making as I'm making it, which I haven't really. I mean, like I used to like vlog in high school, and so I haven't like done something like that since then. So this will kind of be like that.
Yeah, a good experiment. Yeah. Also, I find that you, from my experience of working with you, when you put stuff out there, when you say you're doing things, when you like, that tends to help you follow through in a way that for me it usually doesn't. I've realized more and more that I will work quietly and furtively until suddenly I will have a thing, but you might never know that I was working on something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably start doing these updates pretty regularly. We got to get through next episode 2 of season 3 before my law school one comes in for realsies, because I'm basically Derek is indulging me, and I'm just gonna get 30 minutes to rant. But
Yeah.
yeah, expect those. That'll be a fun experiment for us. And honestly, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we'll change it. That's how this whole damn thing's been. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think this is a nice segue into the today's topic, which is just a creative check-in because it's the beginning of the year. Um, and it's been a little while since we've done that. We've done a lot of guests lately. Um, we've missed a lot of episodes lately
Yeah.
because life is that way. So
Hmm.
why don't you set this up? Like, what's going on your end?
Yeah. So on my end, I'm making some movies this year. I've been starting to pitch a short film around old Tinseltown.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to basically like find financing and start building a crew and a cast to make probably what will be the biggest short film I've ever done. Um, so that's
Biggest
like
in what sense?
biggest in terms of like scale, scope, and probably budget.
Nice, cool.
Because I think Bros of the Realm still holds the most amount of money I've
Mm-hmm.
spent on a
Mm-hmm.
movie. Um, and that's something like 3 or 4 grand. And I think this will be definitely more than that, which is
Fantastic.
scary.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
a lot of cash, and so
mhm.
the difference between like that is like we Indiegogo'd that right
Right.
at a time when crowdfunding was still pretty new,
Yep.
um, and so now it's probably the financing process for this will probably be a mix of finding individual investors as well as a Kickstarter or something, plus like calling in like favors or discounts with like connections I've made over the last however many years I've been doing this. So, which I think this year will be, I think 15 years of doing film stuff, uh, which is pretty wild. So yeah, it'll be a combination of things to try and get it made, and hopefully, just like the last short, hopefully it will play at festivals and stuff. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay,
um,
so I have a question.
yeah,
Because as we've discussed here, I stepped out of doing anything film many years ago now and didn't really pursue it all that professionally. So my question is, when you say like going and finding investors, typically when people think about an investment, they get a return on said investment. In the form of like money plus. Is that what you're doing? You're offering people that, or are you doing more of like the find patrons thing? People who just want
yeah.
to help make cool stuff and have the funds to do that.
Yeah, it is definitely more find patrons than
Nice.
find investors, just because in the world of short films, getting a return on investment, the return on investment is more, it's less financial. It's a lot more like it puts you in the right places to get your work seen so you can get that gig that gets people a return on investment. So,
Right.
um, yeah, I guess it is definitely more patrons than investors, and donors and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's really exciting though. Stressful, but exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I've been very lucky to have had some really supportive like consulting collaborators these last
Hmm.
like 2 months of me kind of getting the script out there to other people that aren't just like my close-knit circle of people that I really trust.
Yeah.
And I've been very lucky that the feedback I've been getting has been very positive, and it's moving at a pretty steady pace. And yeah, I think there's a lot of like steps to that process, and I'll probably talk about it like later. But yeah, it's very different than how I've previously done films, and that's been scary and exciting at the same time, because I think it's keeping the process interesting for me, which is nice. and it's
It's
something
it
I'll have to get used to doing. So,
absolutely, and it sounds interesting because you often talk about how you want to be in a position. Sorry, I don't mean to like grunt about. I'm very sore today. I just got back into doing exercise regularly after holidays. And I'm feeling it. Sorry. Anyways, but you often talk about how you like to constantly be pushing boundaries.
mhm.
Um, because it's how you grow as an artist. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of boundary pushing on the production side. And I don't mean that in the terms of like there's the production side in the terms of like uh, visual effects and that sort of thing. And then there's the production side in the terms of putting on a production, creating a production. And it sounds like on that latter end, you're doing a lot of pushing. So I'm just curious. Um, is your script and all of it like? Do you feel like you're pushing on all foundries, on all cylinders right now, or to greater or lesser extents? Or do you feel
Mm.
like you're like I'm writing my skills already built in like the script writing area and like that sort of thing so that I can just make a really good final product instead of like really pushing my boundaries as a filmmaker such that like I might fail on that side. I don't know. I'm just curious because also it sounds like there are some things you probably can't talk about too much in this regard. So I'm curious about this at least.
Yeah, I think. Hmm. Hmm. I mean, I will say, like, I think over the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years, I've gotten a lot better at screenwriting.
Hmm.
And I think this short film, is probably the best example of my screenwriting and how far my screenwriting will probably go. Um, like, it's not that there's not much more room for me to like grow as a screenwriter,
Hmm.
but it is checking all the boxes of what I hope screenwriting will help me accomplish as a filmmaker. And so this is definitely more of like pushing me, I think, solely as a director.
I see.
Because I think the last few projects, like in our little independent world, we wear a lot of hats. And I think this film, just like the last film where I kind of removed a lot of the hats I wear on set, this film I'm removing a lot of the hats I wear in that development pre-production period.
Mm.
And so it's more on that process of like going through the actual kind of more traditional by the book filmmaking process of going out and finding a producer, getting permits, doing a casting call, going and reaching out to agents to try and cast actors. It's more of that process that I'm really pushing myself on, as well as there's a lot of materials I have to like make to pitch my film. Like the big one that I'm working on right now is a lookbook. It's like a PowerPoint presentation with photographs and text that basically needs to summarize my screenplay and give people a good idea of how I'm going to make the film, what it's going to look and feel like, and the characters in the script. And that's like something that is very much that's going to be used throughout the whole process of me as a director, guiding the crew and finding the resources to make the film. So
Hmm.
that's yeah, so definitely the more that pre-production development period of filmmaking is where I think there's more of a push. And then from like a production scale, like I think like I set my sights pretty big on this. I was like looking at what my peers were doing, what shorts at like Sundance or South by Southwest or Toronto International Film Festival or Tribeca were doing.
Hmm.
And I was kind of like, I need to somehow land somewhere in that solar system. Uh,
Hmm.
and so it's been a lot more of that kind of work. And like, instead of like condensing a camera operator, a camera operator, lighting designer, first AC, and like, director of photography into one person, like really making sure that the film has the resources to have every single one of those jobs as a person for the department, right? So it's been a lot of
Absolutely.
that. So
Yeah. So I'm imagining still like you said a bunch of film festival names and short films in those regards, and even those um that caliber of short filmmaking tends to be still somewhat restrained in terms of like scope of storytelling, scope of sets and locations and all of that stuff. So it sounds to me from your description is that this is a challenge of polish, not a challenge of um, capability, if that makes sense. This project is not about honing skills. It's about um, doing the absolute best based on the skills you already have,
yes,
which very different challenge. Um,
yeah, a very different challenge, and I think it's a challenge that I often shy away from
mhm.
because it's a lot easier to live with knowing you can't than to try your best and fail. um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because if you're doing like a skill challenge thing where it's like, wow, this really wasn't a good film, but I learned a lot and you can see here, 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 and here, I did great. It's a
yeah,
test. It's not. Whereas with this sort of challenge, like, well, you kind of need to have made a good film at the end. You know what I mean? Which is a very different thing, right? Because you can't fall back on like, yeah, it wasn't a really good film, but look at the cinematography. You can be like, yeah, you've made like three other films with just as good cinematography. That's not the impressive thing here. That wasn't your goal, now was it?
exactly.
So that's awesome though. That's really, really cool. And all my faith in you is something I will say. I have a lot of faith in you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. I mean, you have read the script, and for those listening, I'll just say the name of the film, um, and then as we go, I'll say what I can as we go. But the name of the film is Year of the Monkey,
Mm,
and it's it's like the last few films I've done. It's not only very personal, but it's also um very, I guess, yeah, simple, which is nice. um I think it's hopefully gonna be a film um that like in a world where like if this was the last short film I made, or if this was the only big short film I get to make at this scale, like at the end of it all, I the like I'll be proud that it was this one, right? Like that is how I feel about it. I really
yeah,
believe in my own idea, which I don't do all the time. Um,
that's key though. That's
yeah.
really key.
hmm
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's like the big kind of short film project I've got, and
Mhm.
then like there's some other film projects, but they're a bit like the timeline's a bit longer. Like I'm working on a doc project,
Nice.
um, which is fun. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of organizing. I just got a hard drive yesterday to like put all the files on because I didn't have a hard drive big enough for all the footage.
Sounds like a
Um,
documentary to me. Yep.
exactly.
I remember when I made a few documentaries back in high school, and those were for like 3 to 12 minute documentaries. I remember having like 12 hours of footage, maybe more for each.
Yeah,
It's a different beast.
yeah, completely. And so that's so between the short film and the doc project, those are kind of like my two projects with stakes because the doc project is with an organization,
Mm,
which is really great, having like support from like an organization to like make something. Um, but that timeline is like going to be 2 years maybe. So I have a lot of time and not a lot of time at the same time, but I have a lot more time than I do with the short. And it's
Yeah.
not that I even don't have a lot of time with the short. It's just a couple of people have basically laid out how I can make the short, and
Hmm.
now I have no excuse. Um, I can't trick
Yes.
myself out of it. I have no excuses, so I have to just go do it now. So it's which, like, I'm very grateful for those people that have removed those barriers that I had put up in my head.
Hmm.
Um, so those are like the two big projects, and then I've been I don't know. I'm making a commitment to being off of social media in a more intentional capacity this year. Um, to focus more on filmmaking and like really like using film as a space for both my narrative work and my professional work, but also as like a personal space. I think kind of
Hmm.
like how you have the Substack. Um,
Which I
I
have
what
low
was that?
key, I have left abandoned for a little while now. I want to change that, but it's been a little
Yeah, I think.
derelict for a little bit.
But like, to that point of like having like a thing that makes you repeatedly do the thing you want to be doing,
Hmm.
I am going to be putting up a lot. I'm going to be trying to do a lot more on my Vimeo account, um, making like little films, little vlogs, little tests, little experiments to kind of scratch um, that skill, that like making a project with the intention of learning a skill kind of itch that I always have.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I pay for Vimeo, and I'm on a legacy plan now, so I want to use that legacy plan because it's a great legacy plan. I get a lot of space, so I might as well use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, creatively, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling very recharged, and I feel like I have a direction, which is nice.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to see how it goes over the course of the whole year. How about you? I've been talking for quite a bit now.
Oh,
I
well, here's the thing. Professionally, you do creative things, so I'm not surprised you have a little bit more to say. Um,
appreciate it.
so let me. You actually know the biggest change in my creative uh, stance, so to speak,
Yes.
at the moment, because what was it, like 2 3 days ago, I sent you a more or less finished novel and novella. Um,
Hmm.
I finished both last year. I did two additional drafts of each over last year. Um, and now they're at the point where a number of people who have read them who I respect very deeply and respect their writing skills, and they are telling me roughly that I'm in the tinkering phase, and so I've done a lot of send outs to kind of like the next circle out of people who who I want to see to read it. These are either people whose writing acumen I respect even more, so because of their professional experience or their former instructors of mine, things like that, or people who I deeply respect their like creative intuitions, um, but who are not like writers. So that's you, for example. You are a writer. You
Yeah.
write screenplays, but you don't write novels.
Yeah, I don't write
Um,
novels.
yeah. So like that next round of people, I'm gonna collect some feedback on that. Probably some fourth and fifth drafts, and then I'd like to shop them around. Novellas are notoriously tricky to find homes for due to the fact that they are novellas. It's just a weird length. It's a tough length for people because they're just a little on the short side and a little on the long side, depending on the publishing space. A novel is a little bit cheaper, or not cheaper, a little bit easier, just because that's like a really standard format. And novels are strange due to the fact that like it's an arbitrary word count, you know.
Yeah.
Um, like some of the greatest novels of all time are probably technically novellas by most counts. That stuff like um, of Mice and Men, for example, does not hit the 60,000 word length. I don't believe. Um,
Right.
whereas and some novels like the Lord of the Rings are 500,000 words technically, right? And so
Mhm.
it's complicated, right? And in certain genres like the fantasy genre, um you're expected to write longer, and others you're expected to write shorter. And they also need to be like a sellable pitch. I'm somewhat, I am not afraid of my pitch for my novel, which the current going title is Western Constellations. I may have said that before, but the basic premise is um, a retelling of Hercules' story with some like gender bending. It's also set in relatively modern day um, southwestern Colorado. Um, and so it's kind of in the like, oh, it's like, oh, brother, where art thou? But about Hercules and set in modern day US West, basically. Um, and one of the other main character is actually Habe, which is Hercules' final wife, who is the cup bearing goddess of Olympus. And I really wanted to just tell the story of how Hercules calms the fuck down, because afterwards he basically gets a happily ever after with that goddess. But it's very, I'm like, literally, Hercules' whole life is a story of just like anger and tragedy and thievery and violence and
Yeah.
and so like how does that person get to calm the fuck down? And so it's kind of that story, while Hercules is well, in my story, Hercules is a she is telling the labors back to Habe. So kind of get to the best of both worlds there. And typically that's kind of a easy sellable pitch. I need to work on the like elevator pitch. I need to tighten it up a little bit, but um that's the sort of like novel. It's not as esoteric as like the novella, which I can best describe as like modern folklore. It's super dreamy, magical realism. Anyways, so those are done. Well, as done as they're going to be for now. And so that leaves me in this interesting space where also I've been back in school, which has taken up a huge amount of time. So I've not done as much writing as I would love to. Um, and a lot of my creative projects have sort of stepped aside or become different. Like music for me is now just a thing I do to relax. Like I play the piano almost every day, but that basically just looks like me playing music and learning a new piece every now and then. It's not a huge thing. Um, and also my creativity comes out in different outlets. Like I spend a lot of energy working on tabletop role playing campaigns because it's a creative outlet, but it doesn't take a lot out of me, and there's no pressure on it. Um, but it has meant that I've done a lot of editing this past semester because I think about life in semesters again. Hooray! Um, and it's been a lot more editing, and it's a lot less generative writing, like the
Mm.
truly creative side, the stuff that I really really like to do. And so I found myself over this long break between semesters starting to write creatively again from this ground up, and really having like the desire to be writing a novel or novella length piece, but not really having the like idea for it, if that makes sense. Like I don't feel like I have like a just really clutch idea that I can like sit with and dig into for a really long time. And I think that I'm finding out, I think this problem is, I don't even know if I'd call it, go so far as to call it a problem, but this situation is like, has like a twofold problem to it, or like twofold source, which is on the one hand, I'm really rusty right now in terms of just like generative, creative, starting from a blank page style writing as opposed to editing. And so, because I'm really rusty at that, it's really hard to see how a little seed of an idea could become an entire novel length story, right? And so, what I've been doing, so that's the first problem. And then the second, see, I don't like that I'm using this word problem, but I'm just going to keep rolling with it because I don't want to
Yeah.
keep trying to find a synonym. And then the second problem is kind of more about the idea of like, what is a good idea? And if I would like, I really want to publish, I really do. And, um, you're kind of expected to like fit in a genre. And I really love mythic sort of stellar storytelling and magical realism and fantasy. Um, and so far, I've done magical realism and sort of mythic style storytelling. But I haven't done like full on fantasy. And the style of fantasy I like is loose. It is not the Brandon Sanderson style fantasy.
Right.
It is more along the Terry Pratchett side, the Neil Gaiman side. It's even the Earthsea Ursula K. Le Guin side, where it's like magic will not is not clear enough to like solve problems, and that's not the point anyways. It's just mythical and mystical, and things happen that are outside the bounds of things, and really it's character storytelling. Um, and so I'm kind of nervous to like take a full step into fantasy. I don't even know if whatever idea that I latch onto next will be a full fantasy idea, but I'm nervous about that. So to kind of approach all of these issues, I've created like a document on my computer that's just like I just titled it like shaking off the rust. And for a little while now, I will sit down and I will just write something. It doesn't need to be anything. It doesn't need to have a full narrative. Like I've done like just straight up character descriptions or something that sort of feels like the introduction to a longer story, and or just like this is a description of a place, and I'm just like playing with prose and enjoying the act of writing again, with the two hopes of like I will be in the practice of writing regularly. I will be no longer feel like I'm like really rusty at doing this, and I feel like if I toy with enough ideas loosely, I will find the next one. So that's kind of where I'm at, creatively
Yeah.
speaking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a
Whew.
fun stage to be in. The kind of noodling before a big project.
Yeah, yeah, noodling. That's a good word for it. It definitely feels like I'm. It feels, and I'm sure you remember this feeling like before or like at dress rehearsal or any sort of rehearsal before you get started. Like everybody pops out their instruments and starts like just like fiddling around. This especially happens in jazz classes where you're just like I'm just running my scales and I'm on the blues scale, and suddenly I'm not really doing doing much by way of like warm ups anymore. I'm just like running little melodies. And I used to do this when I would write like songs on guitar, like little folk songs. Like I would find that I was just practicing, playing, and then suddenly I will have found something, and I will be suddenly writing it down, and it would become a song. So I feel like I'm in that same stage. Noodling is a great word for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I'm excited for you to take a full. I think it'd be awesome if you took like a full step into the fantasy genre. Um, just because I don't know, we've played so much Dungeons and Dragons together. I have no
Hmm.
doubt in my mind you could do it and do it really well and really stand out, right?
I
Um,
really appreciate that, and I keep trying to remind myself that in some ways I did a weirder leap with the novella, which is the thing that I did with just magical realism. Magical realism is bizarre because it's not
yeah.
even internally consistent. Um,
Hmm.
like fantasy kind of needs to be internally consistent in a certain sense. Like things need to make a certain amount of sense. And but magical realism doesn't. You just say things and then just accept them as true, and you have to like own it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's really exciting. I can't wait to see what happens. I feel like we'll have to do like a update on the rust,
Absolutely.
and just kind of see what's come of the ideas as they oxidize. Because
That's yeah. That's the idea. It's the idea.
yeah.
See what's under there.
Hmm. Well, cool. It sounds like we have a really full year ahead of us. I know something that we did talk about. I think maybe either off mic or maybe it was on the final episode of last year, was planning our whole year of episodes, which we did start. We have a spreadsheet, and we are
Hmm.
doing that. and
Yep.
we are trying to do that. So we, I guess, make cooler episodes.
Definitely some of that, but also a part of it is that like taking the planning load off, right? Because it's not actually that hard to come up with 30 episode ideas as opposed to like 4 to 5 at a time,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, like just why not touch it once and get it done? You know, that's kind of a philosophy of like for me is that I'm trying to sort of touch things I need to get done fewer times before I do them. Um,
Yeah.
just to waste less energy on them.
Yeah. And I think like the energy that we will be saving will probably go directly back into um these creative projects we're doing, which I think is it's always great. It's always great when you can take more energy for the thing you want to be doing. So yeah.
Without a doubt. And for me, with the increase of limited time for these sorts of things, that's oh god. Siri, go away. Why are you doing this to me? Oh god. I gave myself a heart attack. Hang on.
Yeah. Do your thing.
Whew, wow. I literally jumped in the air. Um I just put my phone in my pocket. I must have held down the button. Whatever.
Yeah,
Anyways, law school takes a lot of time. I don't have a lot of extra time. I need every little second I can get, you know.
exactly.
Whew.
Yeah. Okay.
Blood pumping. All right.
Yep. And with that, I think we won't take any more of your time, dear listener. Thank you for coming back for our third season
Hell
of our
yeah.
little show in our little corner of the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can follow the show at Dane and Derek everywhere. But we don't really post on social media.
Not really, no.
We'll occasionally tweet something, but who even knows anymore? And you can see what I'm doing on my Vimeo account, vimeo.com/Benig-Aiello. Super, super simple.
Sounds good. You can find me at danewrites.com, DANE, writes like writing. There's links to my Substack where you can see my writing. I have not updated it recently. Somewhere around mid-October, life in law school got very busy, and I wasn't doing. I was like, okay, either I'm working on the big projects I want to do, or I'm doing the Substack, and I picked the bigger projects and law school, of course. So it's a little out of date, but I'm hoping that will change soon. There's also links to my Instagram for what that's worth, and music I've written in the past, in the ever increasing past, as well as the other podcasts I have also done in the ever increasing past, though Diceology is still releasing episodes weekly. They're just re-releases of an old show I did. But go check all that out. I probably will not say all of that every time from here on out.
All good. I mean, you could. We could do one episode where we just list links of things we've done, and we could probably fill a whole 32 minutes.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us this week.
Catch you later. Out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold with you. I'm out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold.